What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Girl Who Talks Sports with me, Sam Cardona, and thank you guys all for listening today. If this is the first episode you are ever tuning into, welcome, because this will be the first episode that we have recorded on a video camera and posted to YouTube. So hello, everybody on YouTube if you're watching it there, but if you guys are avid listeners and have been listening for a while, welcome back. Thank you so much. I'm wearing my brand new shirt today. I got it from Barstool. It says, "Mom, I'm podcasting" on it, which I love so much because how many times have I had to tell my mom, please be quiet because I am podcasting. I do this out of my basement. But I appreciate everybody tuning in today, and we'll have to do our weekly plugs that I do in the beginning of every show. So don't forget to give a subscribe on Apple iTunes, follow on Spotify or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, or now, if you are now watching on YouTube, subscribe, turn on notifications, comment, like, any of that good stuff that you do on YouTube. You can do that as well as leave a review on Apple Podcasts. That's super helpful to me. And follow the podcast on Twitter, TGWTS Podcast. There I post a lot of stuff about what's going on with my whole, what's going on in my life in terms of the podcast, if I'm running late, if I'm actually doing things on time, like today. It's actually Tuesday. So for the first time in 3 weeks, I'm actually recording on the day that I'm supposed to. And again, if you are new, and you are tuning in on YouTube, I put out a episode every single Wednesday. So don't forget to make sure you tune in every Wednesday to the show. So thank you guys. And also, I'm using my brand new microphone today. I'm so excited. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can actually see part of it. It's on a boomstick now, which is super exciting, and I feel like an actual professional podcaster now. But since I will not rant any longer, we have a great show lined up today. We got a lot of things to go over. Sports may or may not be happening, even though last week we discussed what a lot of sports are going to be doing in the midst of a pandemic happening right now. So we're going to be discussing that a little bit today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So our first thing that we are going to talk about today has to do with the MLB. And last week, on our episode last week, we were discussing the MLB and this agreement that they were trying to reach. And it seemed like there was a lot of negotiations, there was lots of communications happening, however, not really working out all that great. But turns out, as of yesterday, that was Monday the 22nd of June, cannot believe we're already at the end of June. That is crazy to think about. Where did June go? I don't even think April happened, but regardless. So they were trying to figure out whether or not they were going to play a season this year. It had a lot to do with money and salary, which is annoying, but it is what it is. So there was a agreement made, a negotiation made, and it's this thing between the owners, the MLB, and the commissioner, Rob Manfred, and the Players Association and the players. So there was all this disconnection, but there was a negotiation planted, and the MLBPA actually voted to reject it. However, the commissioner seemed to have the last say, and it is official that the MLB will be coming back if there are things in place. So Rob Manfred, the commissioner of the MLB, did impose a season for 2020. And this is going to be going back to their initial March agreement, and that is what this is all going to be based off of. And the players have until today, actually, well, it's 5:30 right now on Tuesday, the 23rd, by now, they should have given in their decision on whether or not they're going to be doing this. They're supposed to say that in a week from now, on July 1st, they will be reporting to camp, and that they now have to obviously obtain to these health and safety protocols that are going to be in place. Let me check my phone to see if there's any updates on that? I don't think so. I haven't seen anything. No, I don't see anything yet, but they are definitely supposed to have been in by now because they gave them the deadline of 5 p.m. on Tuesday, so it's 5:30 now. So there's like the players have to say yes that they're going to play, otherwise there's not going to be a season. So this whole thing has to do with this 60-game season. It would start around July 24th. They were planning on doing these expanded playoffs, but I don't think that that's in the agreement any longer. And then there's also some different rules having to do with a designated hitter, like a universal designated hitter, but I was like, I can't get into this. I need to focus on one thing at a time. So that's the whole thing here is the money. And what this agreement now is in place is that these players will be getting a fully guaranteed salary just playing 60 games, which is insane. But the players, like I said, the MLBPA, the players, they voted against this, but now that they're saying there's going to be a season, so you can either not play or you can play. So it's either don't get paid or get paid. It's black and white at this point. The unfortunate part of this is that the MLB staff and like MLB players there's like 40 people that have COVID, that have come back positive for testing. So not great. They've also closed down all their spring training sites to sanitize it. I mean, there's going to be a lot of precautions taken here, and these people, baseball hasn't even started yet, and yet there's people that are already sick, which is what we're trying not to do, obviously. There was the idea that I had in my head that was always like, well, why aren't they just doing what the NBA is doing? The NBA is coming back at the end of July. They're doing this like bubble situation where they're staying in one place in Disney, in the ESPN part of Disney, and they're not going anywhere else. They're staying in one place. They're going to constantly get tested. They're going to constantly sanitize, yada, yada, yada. And that is like what I was saying. Okay, like, why doesn't baseball do that? And the same thing with football. Like, why are we not putting everybody just in one place? It's the easiest to, just make sure that everything stays. We're not going to hotels. We're not interacting with other people that we're not supposed to be interacting with. Like, it's just flat out so much easier if they just stay in one place. But I saw an interesting tidbit that was the bubble plan can't happen because the places that they were planning on having a quote-unquote bubble was Arizona, Texas, and Florida, and you would think, okay, like Arizona, Texas, and Florida, those are all really, really warm places. So that's it makes sense that a virus obviously wouldn't be able to live down there, but on the opposite side of all that, we have people in those areas, and they are spiking. They are going back to where they were before, which is not great. And me being, so I'm from New York, as many people know, or if there's new people here, I live in New York City. So we are in like the midst of a heat wave or something right now. We're at like 90 degrees. So I can only imagine what it's like down there in the south. But that doesn't mean that you can go out and, do whatever. There's still people that are sick, and I think people down there are not realizing that. So there's spikes in these locations in which they would have had a bubble plan. So even if they wanted to do it, it's not going to happen anymore, which sucks. So I literally wrote it, underlined it in my notes that I have in front of me. What is going to happen when someone, let's just say, for the MLB, excuse me, gets sick? And there doesn't seem to be an answer for that yet. If, let's say, through all of this going on, somebody gets, unfortunately, corona, and they have families, and they have players, and they have all these different people that they're surrounded by. Like, what kind of precautions are we going to take now? And it doesn't help at all that this virus, it's very possible that you can have it and not know that you have it. And that's the constant testing, which is good, which is a good, protocol to have. But now, okay, now you test and somebody comes back positive. Then what? How, like, even if you're testing every 3 days, like, these guys are not going to stay, they're not going to always be 6 feet apart from one another. So that's, like, where my concern is lying. And yes, do I want to watch some baseball? Absolutely. Do I want to watch football? Hell yeah, I want to watch football. But if that's going to mean that we're going to have a huge spike in a disease that we have to get rid of at this point, and there's no vaccine for it yet, I don't know how smart of an idea this all is, which is unfortunate. But we'll see how it works. We'll see if I get an update while I'm recording. I will definitely update you guys on whether or not the players have voted yes for this agreement. But it's just, there's a lot to think about. And, yeah. We'll have to see how it all plays out. Hopefully nobody gets sick. I don't want people to get sick. But unfortunately, it's very possible that even with the sanitizing and the testing and the social distancing and the masks, somebody still might get sick. And that's not what we want at all. Alright, so let's move on and go into our first segment on the show, and my favorite segment on the show, Tea Time. Tea Time is my favorite segment on the show because we delve into the hot, steamy gossip of the sports world. And this week, we have some pretty hot tea, I would say. So, this week's tea has to do with the fact that the defensive player from the Jets, Jamal Adams, has officially requested a trade from the Jets. This happened on Thursday. And it kind of shook everybody because everyone was like, oh. So this is what happened, like, back in October, is the Jets and Jamal Adams, I don't know if they have quite of the best relationship with one another, but there was miscommunication between him and their general manager, Joe Douglas, who was not putting him on the market, but people were asking him about it, like, okay, are you going to trade him? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? Are you going to have him by the trade deadline? What's up? And they were listening to these different people asking all these questions, but never told Jamal Adams about it. So there has been a little bit of friction going on here with all that situation, but officially, this past Thursday, he asked for a trade from the New York Jets. Technically, he's still under contract for 2 more seasons. Jamal Adams is still a rookie. Like, he's still in his rookie contract, which, honestly, I didn't even, like, think about. Like, I said it was just, like, 24-year-old Adams. Like, I was like, oh, crap. Like, that's my age. I'm 24. This guy got drafted 2 years ago. Like, or 3 years ago. No, 2 years ago. So the fact that he's still under his rookie contract and he's already requesting a trade is a little bit spicy. So, and it's also possible that the Jets can say, like, no, we're not trading you, and we're also going to franchise tag you, and you're going to be here for another 3 seasons instead of 2, which, we don't know what's going to happen with that. But the whole thing is that there was a video that had surfaced from, I saw it on the Twitter sphere. Someone was in, like, a parking lot or something, and he was recording out of his window, and he sees Jamal Adams in his car, and he was like, yo, man, what's up? When are you coming to Dallas? And, as in the Dallas Cowboys, and he said, I'm trying. And everyone was like, oh. Jamal Adams wants to go to Dallas. And even when this whole situation was going on back before the trade deadline in October, Dallas was interested in him. So it seems that maybe they're interested in one another now. So that's very, very, I'm interested in them being interested in one another. So they are now thinking the Cowboys are going to be trying really, really hard to get Jamal Adams. And we're going to talk about that right after I finish this up, because we have some things to talk about the Cowboys as well. So he grew up in Dallas. I think he went to high school in Dallas, so that was kind of like where he's from. So that's also something that brought somebody like Andy Dalton to Dallas. I mean, Andy Dalton is now a Dallas Cowboy, and he was just like, I just want to go there because I live there. Like, he lives there primarily, and then he moved to Cincinnati during the season, but he lived in Texas. So anyway, the Jets have not granted any sort of permissions about this whole trade situation, so Jamal Adams cannot talk to other teams. He's not allowed to say anything to other teams. That's like a breach of the contract or something. And they're even saying that his agent isn't allowed to look into things for him. Like, the Jets are in complete control here, and honestly, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, the Jets, have no bad ending to this at all, in my opinion. So, you can either trade Jamal Adams to, let's say Dallas, or they were even thinking Philadelphia might be interested, or, what was the other one? San Francisco, I think, was in the mix too. So, you can either trade him, and you get like a first round, second round, third round pick for him. Like, some good stuff. Some really good stuff. Or you can keep him and keep him on his contract or whatever, and nothing else changes. He stays, he plays, he continues to be Jamal Adams. Very good defensive player. Or Jamal Adams can hold out and you don't have to pay him. Like, there's no bad ending for the Jets here with this whole Jamal Adams situation, in my mind at least. But he also has said, I want to be the highest paid defensive player, and that seems to be, everybody wants to be the highest paid player, and you're just like, all right, take it easy there, all right? Relax, okay? But again, the Jets, I don't see any sort of bad ending. I think that either way, they're going to win with this Jamal Adams thing. And if Jamal Adams does end up leaving, you got a happy Jamal Adams, you have a happy Jets, because they're probably going to get like a first and a third round pick for him or something like that. Maybe throw in another player or something from Dallas. Who knows? Who knows? I don't see anything bad going on with this. The T in this mix here is that there was the previous weird situation going on with the general manager, and he wasn't in the loop, and who didn't know what, and it was just like whatever. And then it was also that Jamal Adams was the one that was like, yo, trade me, I want you to trade me. And then also the idea that the Jets can be like, no, we're not gonna trade you, and you're like, whoa, and then it get tensiony. And I love football, man. Football is just one big giant soap opera. And I literally feed off of off-season football stories. To go on a quick tangent really quick, back when I was in college, so I started doing this in college, not as a podcast, obviously, but I was on the campus radio station, and I was given a 2-hour slot every Monday to just rant about whatever I wanted. I used to have a co-host named Gabe. Shout out Gabe. But he ended up going to a different school, and we didn't have that many people on the radio station, so I didn't get a different co-host. So I did it by myself. I sat for 2 hours with a couple commercial breaks, but I sat there for 2 hours and just ranted. And in the spring semester, obviously this is I get the beginning of it would be like Super Bowl stuff and whatever, but from February to May was, baseball started and there was basketball happening, whatever, but I'm a football nut, so I just talked about off-season football stories for February, March, April, May. 4 months! And I lived for it. I loved it so much. So anyway, that's just my quick little tangent for the day. But now let's talk about the Cowboys for a second. So, like I said, the Cowboys are in the midst of something interesting as well, having to do with their quarterback, Dak Prescott. So, Dak, as we know, we've talked about him in the past, and there was a rumor going around, which had been denied, but who knows, that the Cowboys had offered him $135 million, and he still didn't think that was enough money, which is bonkers to think about. If you want to give me $135 million, I will 100% take that. I don't understand. Some of these guys get crazy with their money. But instead, it was said that was a rumor, that was never anything that happened, yada, yada, yada. So the whole thing with Dak is that there was a franchise tender sitting there and available for him to sign, and he was not going to sign it. But, alas, news has broke as of yesterday or 2 days ago. He ended up signing the franchise tender, and I was like, God, look at him. Like, what is he doing? And I did some research, and there might be some things involving this whole Jamal Adams situation. So, we're going to get into it. So, he signed this franchise tag, which is a $31.4 million. Not bad. And they still have time between now and July 15th to settle on a long-term agreement. So, honestly, again, in the fact that I think that the Jets aren't going to lose this Jamal Adams situation, Dak is also not going to lose. So, he signs the franchise tender. And like I said, still have until July 15th to work out a long-term deal. And this is where I saw a tweet, which I forgot to write down whose tweet it was. But I didn't think of this on my own. So, he was like, this is what's going on. Like, this is probably what's happening. So, he said, Dak signs the tag. Dak has signed his franchise tag. Now, if Dallas wants Jamal Adams, having a tag makes it a little bit tougher to sign him or extend him or whatever. Dak can then, they give Dak the extension that he wants, and that makes it easier to do the trade in terms of money or whatever. And Dak has just incentivized himself, because he's like, all right, either I get this $31.4 million, or you extend me and I get my long-term contract, and you still have $11 million in cap space, but we also get Jamal Adams. So, like, honestly, it's just like everybody's going to win in this situation. I'm sorry if you can hear my house phone ringing, which is really, really annoying, and that's part of the reason why I bought this shirt. Mom, I am podcasting. If you hear the phone ringing, maybe turn it off. I don't know. Landlines, man. We don't even answer the landline anymore. Anyway, I'm going to stop complaining. So, like I said, so Dallas has $11 million in their cap space. And honestly, Jamal Adams is probably going to end up being at most like $6 million. So they have enough money to get him. And it's like, again, there's the losing aspect I'm not seeing that much, especially with the amount of money that's being thrown around. Like, maybe to them it's nothing, but you want to give me even $1 million? Sure, I'll take it. I don't care. The franchise tag, what the franchise tag means, though, is that Dak is now, no matter what, like, he's going to be playing this season as a Dallas Cowboy. The tag means that he is contractually obligated to report to training camp whether they make a long-term deal or not. So they could, end up reaching July 15th, no deal is made, but he has signed this franchise tag, which means he has to report to camp. But you get $31.4 million, so again, where's the loss here? So that's what's going on with Dallas. That's what's going on with Dak, and that's what's going on with Jamal Adams. The whole thing is pretty crazy. Whenever we get into all this money talk and everything, it loses me, really. I start not really paying attention. I'm like, more grown men want more money. Like, I don't know what else to tell you about all this. It's whatever. But the Jamal Adams thing was a little spicy, and Dak getting in the mix of it all is very smart. He probably has a very smart agent. Alright, let's move on from all this money talk, and let's talk about Dallas Goedert. And Dallas Goedert is a tight end for the Eagles, and we're going to talk about him because this poor man got punched in the face. So, why he got punched in the face, I'm not entirely sure. I don't really think the media knows that information. But, so this is what happened. He was in South Dakota for some reason. I have no idea why he's in South Dakota. But he was in South Dakota with his sisters, his two sisters, and their husbands. So his two sisters and his two brother-in-laws for somebody's birthday. And they went to a bar, I guess in South Dakota. There's barely anybody there, so I guess COVID is not as much of a threat there as it would be somewhere else. But there's a video, which I would watch if I were you. Just Google Dallas Goedert punched in face. It'll pop up. So it seemed like there was a scuffle that started for some reason. Again, the reason seems to be unknown. But this guy comes out, and Dallas seemed to have gotten in the middle he was not the one who initiated the fight. There seemed to be happening between other people, and Dallas kind of got in the middle and was gonna try and mediate the situation, but instead he got sucker punched in the face, absolutely just obliterated, and the guy just swings, punches him in the face, and he just drops to the floor and is just laying on his back, just completely unconscious. When I watched the video, I literally went, ooh, I wasn't even expecting it, because I was like, okay, he's gonna get punched, it's gonna be whatever, but he went unconscious, and he ended up having to go to the hospital. He's fine. He said that he was more embarrassed than he was actually painfully hurt. So, but this guy, Kyle Douglas Hadala, is this 29-year-old man who punched Dallas Goedert in the face. He has been arrested and charged with simple assault, and he has a prior record in which, back in 2009, he got arrested for driving recklessly and having alcohol in his system, and from that he only had to pay a $786 fine and 40 hours of community service. So, I'm sure the guy is fine. Everybody has their demons. It's whatever. But you punched the wrong guy in the face. And whether or not you know who Dallas Goedert, honestly, I could probably run into Dallas Goedert in the street and still not know who he is. These guys wear helmets. You can't see their faces. But you punch, why? Why are we punching people? Why are we sucker punching people in the face? Could you imagine going out to the bar, getting drunk, whatever, and just happen to get into a fight, and that person you get into a fight with happens to be an NFL football player, and then your face and your name and your prior record ends up getting known by people who you probably don't want people to know about. Sucks, man. It really sucks. But honestly, I highly recommend watching the video, because if you're just oh, I need to see Maybe you hate Dallas Goddard. Who knows? If you hate Dallas Goddard, you'll love the video. I don't hate Dallas Goddard, but it's a crazy video. It's just, honestly, it's very quick. Like, once the beginning starts, like, you have to, like, pay attention immediately because it happens almost, like, the second the video starts. But it's just, he dropped so fast. It was insane. Just insane to watch. So, but the guy got arrested. He's charged with simple assault. I guess that's, like, the least amount, because he punched him once in the face and that was it. Like, they didn't go in and start punching him while he was laying down on the ground unconscious. The whole situation, I think, mostly got diffused afterwards, after he got knocked out. But yeah, it's you don't want to go around punching people in the face that you don't know, because they might end up being a tight end for the Eagles, and then your name gets plastered everywhere and everybody knows that you are a crappy person, maybe. I don't know this guy. But yeah, so that's what happened. That happened this past Saturday with an update on Dallas Goddard and his life. Alright, let's do one more story before we get into our finishing up segments at the end of the show here. So, what seems to be going on is that the Mets might be getting put into new ownership. And who these people are, you are never going to guess. Unless you already know, then you already know what I'm going to say. So, there had been talks that Alex Rodriguez and his fiancée, soon-to-be wife, Jennifer Lopez, were going to be buying the New York Mets. And there seems to be somebody else in the mix, and that is Barstool president Dave Portnoy. And obviously, I'm wearing Barstool apparel right now. I love Barstool Sports. I think that I've been following them since I was like a freshman in college. That was a long time ago. Not too long ago, like 6 years ago. But honestly, I send them my podcast all the time, hopefully. Hey guys, please hire me. Please hire me. I love you, and I really want to be a professional podcaster for you. Anyway, so Dave Portnoy is in the mix with all this, and recently he's been Davey Day Trader. He's been doing all this money, and he seems to be very smart. Like, I'm very impressed with everything that he does with his platform and his money and his stocks or whatever it is you do when you're a day trader. I have no idea. Could not even begin to talk about any of that stuff. So, but this is like not out of left field. There's connections at Barstool with ARod, Big Cat, who is one of the main guys at Barstool. He knows ARod, and he like kind of works for him, sort of. It's a little complicated, but if you listen to Part of My Take, which is him and PFT Commenters podcast, they talk about ARod and the fact that like it was like an ongoing joke for a while. Anyway, ARod's in the mix. They know each other. Dave knows ARod and all that stuff. And this is what Dave well, first of all, the Post tweeted out the story, and Dave quoted the tweet with the story in it and said no comment, which obviously means there's something going on here. But he also tweeted, an anonymous source has asked me if I'd like to be involved with an anonymous professional sports team if they anonymously buy the franchise. I wouldn't need to relocate. Need to consider. Which honestly, yeah, because Barstool is based in New York City, so if you own a New York team, you obviously wouldn't need to relocate unless you buy a New York football team, in which then you'd have to relocate to New Jersey, and whatever. Anyway, so seems like there's something going on there. I would not be the least bit surprised if somehow the president of Barstool Sports ended up owning a professional sports team. And honestly, that would be insanely amazing for the Mets, because the Mets would just gain popularity just because he would own them, and ARod. So, but there's stuff. Barstool is not the most squeaky clean place. They've had their share of drama and such, which honestly I live for. The Call Her Daddy drama that happened like in the past month, absolutely lived for it. Like followed every single second of it and tried to gather as much information as possible. I absolutely lived for it. Honestly, through that is when I actually started giving my podcast to Barstool Sports, because I was just like, hey, you need new people. So yeah, it would be I think very beneficial for the Mets. I think it'd be very beneficial for Barstool Sports, and seems to be something that's brewing, and we will definitely keep up with it and see if Dave actually ends up owning the Mets with ARod and J-Lo. What a just group of people they have there. Alright, let's do some segments. Tweet of the week. Tweet of the week this week goes to somebody, this is just fantastic stuff. Let me pull it up on my phone. I have a screenshot of it. Don't know why my face isn't being read. But it goes to Natalie Patterson, who I actually don't follow, but I got this tweet up on my Twitter because a lot of people that I follow liked the tweet, which is fantastic, and I'm going to put it on a t-shirt. It's great. Her @ is I am N Patterson, if you want to follow her. So she said, "You're too embarrassed to wear a mask, but you'll wear a Jets jersey out in public?" Yeah, okay. Honestly, yeah. I don't understand why people aren't wearing masks, and I'm not going to get into a spiel about it right now. But the fact that you are like, oh, I don't want to walk around with a mask because it makes me look stupid. Meanwhile, you're walking around with a Mark Sanchez jersey on, or a Geno Smith jersey, or a Jamal Adams jersey for that matter, who's a fantastic player but plays for the Jets. And I just thought that was absolutely just a perfect tweet. Just absolutely perfect. Before we end off our episode this week with our feel-good story of the week, I know last week I'm pretty sure I said that we were going to do a movie review of A League of Their Own, and unfortunately I just did not have the time to sit down and watch this movie, so it didn't happen, but I will try and get it done next week. We'll stick with A League of Our Own. And I just let you guys know that I'm going to be doing that in case you're like, oh, I've seen that, but I want to rewatch it. Or I haven't seen that, but I'd like to hear your review of it. And then you can watch it in preparation. But I just didn't have the time. I did actually have the time, but instead I started watching Outer Banks, which I am completely and utterly and beautifully obsessed with. Such a fantastic show. If you have not watched it yet, I highly recommend it. Very much so. I have 2 episodes left, so I don't know how it ends, but so far the 8 episodes that I have watched are chef's kiss, beautiful. I love it. Anyway, I know this is a much shorter episode than usual. Usually our episodes obviously are about like an hour long, but with not that much stuff in sports happening right now, it is what it is. So our feel-good story of the week this week is, it's going out to our old pal, Eli Manning. So, some really great news. Obviously, when Eli retired a couple months ago, the Giants decided that they would be retiring number 10 because Eli will always have a special place in our hearts. But the great news with all this is that Ole Miss, his college alma mater, will also be retiring number 10, and he is the 3rd player in their franchise, I believe, to have their number retired at their school. One of those other 3 people, including Eli, is Archie Manning, who is Eli's dad. He also went to Ole Miss, and they retired number 18 for him. So I think that that's really special, and when I read that, I was very, very happy about it, and just very excited at the fact that Eli was, at the end of it all, yes, did we struggle a bit? Absolutely. Did we struggle throughout the whole time he was there? Sure. Did he get us 2 Super Bowls against Tom Brady? Hell yeah, he did. Eli has the most precious little crevice in my heart just there, just for him, because he is so special to me. And when I watched his press conference when he retired, I missed it up so hard. Didn't like sob or anything, but it was not easy. But so that's our feel good story of the week. They're going to retire it September 19th during the Auburn game, if that ends up happening, if college football ends up happening this year. But that's what they have it planned for. And that's on Eli. And I love you, man. You're the best. And that's our show for this week. So I appreciate you guys all for listening. I appreciate you guys all for now watching on YouTube. I'm very excited to kind of figure out where YouTube may or may not take this podcast. I hope it takes it in a beneficial direction. And we'll send you guys off with our plugs once again. You can follow and subscribe on Apple iTunes, Spotify, wherever it is that you get this podcast from. Subscribe on YouTube, turn on notifications, leave a comment, do the like, anything that you do on the YouTubes. And leave a Apple Podcast review, which is very beneficial to the podcast, in which my podcast will be more well known when you search it in the little box. So, and you can follow the podcast on Twitter. TGWTS Podcast is the @ So I thank you all for listening this week. We will be back next week with hopefully a movie review that I don't procrastinate on doing. I hope you all have a fun, fantastic, sports-filled day, and I will see you guys all next week. Bye!